But the opening song is called Stop in the Name of Love. Again, today's talk is the grace to stop. The lyrics don't really fit with today's homily, but the chorus definitely does, and the video is so much fun to watch. So enjoy the video, pay great attention to the chorus. Hopefully it will start singing in your head over and over again. And then Kate, whenever you're ready, you can play that song. Not a great video. All right, so let's go into prayer. So my prayer today is that we realize deep clarity regarding the value of stopping. Most humans would never consider stopping as love. Even most spiritual students have not yet digested that stopping is love. Often out of what we feel are our good intentions, which really comes from the belief that our mind is right. We do. We try to improve. We try to change. And the entire time we're just moving the world round and round in its old patterns as they repeat themselves over and over again in slightly different ways. Love stops. Help us to see today how true that is so that we can begin to stop within ourselves. Amen. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the mic over to Reverend Joanne Schneider. She is going to read an excerpt from a book by a man named David Carse. The book is called Brilliant Stillness, and this is an excerpt from chapter 30. So I'm turning it over to you, Joanne.
Okay, it's titled, good morning, first of all. Stop, from chapter 30, from Brilliant Stillness by David Carse. Stop. Please just stop. Stop talking. Stop objecting. Just for a moment, let quietness happen. Notice how you cannot do that. You cannot bring that about. Notice how objections and judgments and resistance continue to arise as long as they continue to arise. Let it be. Let quietness, stillness be. Notice how nearly every thought you have is a me thought, an I thought. Almost every thought you have starts with I or is about me or mine. I feel, I think, but it's not that way for me and my experience, where I am coming from, and so on. Even when those words are not used, the thought is important to you because you think of it as your thought, your opinion, something you think you feel about yourself, or your reality. Drop it. Do not seek the truth, only cease to cherish opinions. If you wish to know the truth, then hold no opinion for or against anything. To set up what you like against what you dislike is a disease of the mind, as quoted by Sing Cheng. When you are given the unspeakable grace, the unbelievable, undeserved, unearned gift of being able to see, to notice that what you are thinking is an opinion or is something by which you identify yourself, the gift of being able to listen to yourself, then stop. Honor the gift by stopping and let it drop. The opinion, let it drop. The bit of identity contained in every statement about yourself, every comment involving yourself, every question coming from yourself, let it drop. Let the grace of this moment of catching yourself having an opinion, talking as an I, let that grace stop you. A quote from Ramesh: do you want to know how to live life? Be still. Be still means don't think. You see, it's so simple. Be still does not mean to stop moving the body. Be still does not mean to try to stop all thoughts and feeling from arising. Thoughts and feelings will always arise. Be still means letting go of that secondary level of thought, opinion, judgment, commentary. That is what it means to stop. No thought you have ever had is true. No opinion you have ever held is right. Let them go. No idea you have of yourself or of who or what you are has ever corresponded to reality or ever will. Let them go. Comparing, sifting, learning, struggling, imagining, feeling, thinking, all chasing after the wind. Instead, there is the awesome, overwhelming gift of stopping, of letting it drop. You must have a clear understanding that all things are only a manifestation of the mind itself. Everything in this world is nothing but a complex manifestation of one's mental activities. Let it stop. Let it drop away. Stop taking it seriously. Stop it. Stop taking it at all. Let it be. Be still. Simply stop. Let grace stop you. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. For every force applied, there is an equal force applied back. The world, the universe, Maya, only exists because of resistance to it. You push against it, it pushes back. The only way to freedom is surrender. You stop pushing, asserting yourself, and illusion stops pushing back, asserting itself. Stop pushing, putting energy into the system, and stop pushing, putting energy into the system, and there is no energy in the system to push back. Stop telling the story, and without that constant input of energy, the story collapses. This, I suppose, is the law of karma. The only way beyond is to stop creating it. This is the purpose of self-inquiry. Who is it that is doing all this acting, all this pushing? The ego, the sense of a separate self, has convinced you that the only way to survive is to push, to act, to make things happen. Because then the illusion will push back and seem real. And that is the only way that the sense of self, which relies on separation, can survive. Self-inquiry brings this to awareness. So who is it that is doing all this? Who is it who thinks, I have to do something? Who is the one who is thinking this? When this inquiry begins, some of the pushing stops. And so some of the pushing back stops. And things quiet down a little. As long as you're involved in the pushing, in making things happen, you appear to be the one doing things. The individual self is convinced that if it doesn't do something, nothing will get done. And it won't be able to survive. Which is true. It won't. But you will. If you stop, something amazing happens. The individual stops being involved, stops acting, and amazingly, everything continues to happen without you doing it. Because, surprise, you were never doing it. Try this as an experiment if you can. The sense of separate self will panic as you come to the point where you stop doing anything. It may actually prevent you from stopping. But if the grace of stopping happens, and there is the experience of watching everything continue to happen, you will never again be able to believe there was ever anyone there doing anything. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joanne. I appreciate the reading. And you know, many of you know me well enough to know that one of my favorite books is the Tao Te Ching. And the Tao Te Ching really teaches this stop well. But it's not the only book that teaches this stop well. In fact, many of you all are familiar with the teachings of Inner Ramana. Although I'm not sure it ever uses the word stop. This book is all about stop. You know, if you read it with that thought in mind, you're not going to find anything here but stop, right? And it's very clear that stopping is how to awaken from the dream. But not only that, the Holy Spirit's interpretation of the New Testament makes it clear that stopping is also the way to get to the peaceful dream. And as we've seen over and over again, getting to the peaceful dream comes before going beyond the dream. You know, I've had people tell me that they want to awaken to truth. And I've had others tell me they're not as interested in awakening, they just want to get to peace, to happiness, right? Well, it doesn't really matter which goal is your goal. The answer of how to get there is the same. We have to stop. Many of you have seen that funny Bob Newhart video, stop it, right? Just stop it. But that's the answer. A part of the confusion comes because the ego misinterprets stop. So let's talk about what stop means. First of all, one of the things that David Carse talks about, which was also the title of my talk today, is the grace to stop. That's not a minor point. You can't stop if you don't ever notice you're doing, right? So in this way, we need to have compassion for all of the people who never at this point have the grace of seeing their doing, and because they can't make the choice to stop. But the grace of seeing doing, I think, has probably happened to each and every one of you already, and it will continue to happen. So if you'll pardon the expression, you really have no excuse. It shows up in your mind when you're thinking off on some story, thinking off on some grievance, thinking off on some imaginary future. I know that grace to stop shows up. When it shows up, you need to honor it by stopping. Sometimes right when you're speaking, you're noticing, you're telling a gossip story, and that grace to stop shows up. That's when you need to stop. Or you're mouthing off some political opinion, the grace shows up. That's when you need to stop, right? Again, those who don't receive the grace of being aware of the doing can't stop. But those of us who do receive the grace of noticing need to stop. I told you the lyrics of that Supremes song wasn't perfect, but that the chorus was, stop in the name of love before you break my heart. Now the stop in the name of love is probably clear to you, but in case it's not, I'll quote Ramana Maharshi again. The greatest service that you render the world is your own self-realization, right? And that comes through stopping. So stop in the name of love. That's why we stop. And this is important too, because that I am bad belief, that guilt, that unworthiness can mess things up. It can say, for example, if you notice yourself gossiping and the awareness to stop arises, the ego can immediately jump on that and start telling you how bad you are, because here you are gossiping again. We don't stop because we're bad if we continue. That's not the intention. That's just believing the ego, and that's not actually stopping at all. That's just switching tracks. We stop in the name of love because we want truth rather than illusion. And what we catch ourselves doing is participating in illusion, illusory thinking, illusory believing. So we stop in the name of love. I'm stopping this thought process in my mind because I want truth, love. I'm stopping the speaking because I want truth, love. I'm stopping what I was about to do because it was coming from reacting, and I want truth, love. So we stop in the name of love. But again, the chorus is, stop in the name of love before you break my heart. Now, who I hear speaking in that is those who don't have the grace to stop. We're taking care of them. Some of you have heard recently, I shared somewhere, so I know you heard it maybe. I don't remember where I shared it, but I think you might have heard it. I remember sharing somewhere that I had an experience one time where all identification with Regina dropped. There was no identification with anything. There was just this nobody, this present awareness. And during that time, I was asked to read from the Bible. and I was reading the closing section of the book of John. And this is where Jesus asks Peter to take care of my sheep. And I was asked to take that on as a calling. This is still when I was nobody. And I said, yes, I would do that. And then I came back to identification with Regina. Well, if I was nobody, I was all of us when I said yes to that. I wasn't Regina. That's important. We are taking care of everyone who does not yet have the wherewithal to take care of themselves because they don't have the grace. The grace hasn't appeared yet to show them the stop. When you stop, it's the greatest service you can render the world. You know, right now in this present time, protesting, making a Facebook post that agree with the right side of the protesting may appear to be love. But what truth is telling us is that's just continuing the illusion. That's just pushing. And it also tells us that whenever we push, there's going to be a pushback of equal force. This is what has kept the world going around forever and ever and ever and ever. I'm also going to say something that may be shocking to some people, and it is not at all politically correct, but it's true. Right now, one of the problems in America appears to be racism. That's not the problem. If you go to a country where they don't have separate races, they still find ways to divide. They may divide based on religion. They may divide based on their economic status. They may divide based on political points of view. They have all the same problems. If we are able to cure racism in America so that it does not exist at all, we will just find another way to divide. Do you hear what I'm saying? The problem is separation. The problem is the ego. And we're the ones that know that. We don't want to slip into believing the problem is racism. Or if you're in Ireland, you don't want to slip into believing the problem is Protestants and Catholics' religion, right? Or if you live in India, you don't want to slip into believing it's religion, Hindus against Muslims, or caste. Because that's not the problem. That's where the ego tricks us. And if we believe the problem is racism, and it's time for racism to end, listen to the words carefully, and we protest against racism, we're still pushing. You can feel it. You know it's true. And those people out there, I mean, they are well-intentioned. Don't get me wrong. They are well-intentioned, and they don't have the grace to stop. A part of what we do is we let that be. We don't try and stop them. We stop here. That's where we stop. In fact, I mentioned a while ago that a part of the problem is that the ego misinterprets the word stop. Stop, believe it or not, is synonymous with let it be. Non-interference. So again, it would be wrong of us if we digested this, the importance of stopping, right? And then we go out there and start preaching to them. You got to stop. You got to stop. You're pushing. Guess what we're doing? We're pushing. Right? We're pushing. We stop and we let everyone else be. And that's not true, that's not just true in this current national scene. First of all, this has always been the truth, but this is true in our personal lives. You know, maybe some of us can get this when it comes to the personal scene, and we can choose to let it be and be non-involved and stop and not have an opinion and not pick sides in the national scene. But boy, in my household or in my work life, we're still pushing. Or even in my mind. You know, there's a difference between stop and trying to force some thought or some emotion away. If I'm trying to force some thought or some emotion out of my awareness, I am pushing. Stop means let it be. Do not interfere. Probably like almost everybody. I mean, I'm guessing this is not much different for most people. In meditation, when the mind starts wandering, you know, that used to be accompanied by judgment. That used to be accompanied by, you can't meditate, you will never be able to meditate. And then one day, while practicing a form of the loving all exercise, which is more of a meditative form, which I will teach in next week's retreat, I was practicing this meditative form of loving all, and the mind started wandering, and I started that judgment of it. When the clarity came, loving all means loving the mind wandering. And I was able to slip into the background position with a let it be, a non-interference. The mind wandering continued, and I wasn't a part of it. And in fact, this is what he says at the end. This is what David Carse says at the end, but I hesitate to show this to people because I know people use it as an excuse. So I'm going to ask you all to listen with every ounce of wisdom that you have. He says, try this as an experiment if you can, meaning stopping. The sense of separate self will panic as you come to the point where you stop doing anything, right? It will. You know, it wants you to push. It wants you to believe you have to push. It wants you to believe that if you're not out there changing things, the world, the workplace, the family is going to go to hell, right? It needs you. That's the ego, okay? So try this as an experiment if you can, stopping. The sense of separate self will panic as you come to the point where you stop doing anything. It may actually prevent you from stopping. You might listen to it and believe it. But if the grace of stopping happens and there is the experience of watching everything continue to happen, like I said, I became the background of awareness and the mind wandering continued, but I wasn't a part of it. If the grace of stopping happens and there is the experience of watching everything continue to happen, you will never again be able to believe there was ever anyone there doing anything. Now, this is what people sometimes use as an excuse, and this is where we have to be very discerning. This is saying stop, and then you might find your body doing it anyway. Maybe. But you will know the difference. You will know that you legitimately stopped and then it got said anyway, or it got done anyway. And see, and this is what I mean, you have to be really discerning, because some people then want to take that as an excuse. They're still thinking, they're still believing, they're still acting, and they're saying, but it happened through me anyway. No, that's not true. There is a difference, and I know the difference. Your focus is on the stop, not the doing it anyway side. If your focus is on the doing it anyway side, you're not going to stop. That may happen, and it may not. But that's not your business. That's none of your business. It's none of your business. Your business is stopping. Your business is being not involved. Your business is let it be. That's your job. And we do it in the name of love before we continue to break the heart of the entire world. You know, some of you guys have heard the story of Ramana Maharshi when the ashram was robbed. The robbers, one of the robbers had a club and beat Ramana Maharshi. Ramana was laying on the ground. I don't know if he knocked him to the ground, but anyway, he's laying on the ground. He's beating Ramana Maharshi on one side because Ramana is laying on the other side. And when he stops beating, you know, Ramana just kind of turns over and says, "Do you want to beat the other side now?" Kind of reminds me of Jesus has turned the other cheek, you know, and the robber didn't. He kind of, I think, dropped the club and walked away. He didn't. But after that, then one of Ramana's devotees, kind of like Peter wanted to take the sword, right? Well, one of Ramana's devotees wanted to go after this guy and get him now. And Ramana told him, you know, stop in the name of love. He didn't quite say it like the Supremes, but stop in the name of love. He said, it's their job to be robbers. It's our job to be enlightened. Do you hear? It's their job to be robbers. That's the let it be part of stop. They don't have the grace right now to notice their actions. They're moving with the Tao. And some people have a lot of trouble understanding, well, how could the Tao be robbing or shooting unarmed black men or creating COVID-19? Well, it's the natural reaction of the push. That's what happens. You push, it pushes back. The pendulum swings. So if you understand that that's the natural reaction of the push, that's the push back, then you know that the only way to truly be helpful is to stop. Let it be, non-involved. That includes no opinions. That includes not taking sides. You see, even if you're physically not doing anything, but in your mind, you still think there's a right side, and you think your stopping is going to help the right side, that's still an error. This is so subtle. And in fact, that's where I would recommend, you know, when you get a chance later, and I really do recommend this, go pick up NTI. I think probably most of y'all have it. Open up to NTI Luke, chapter 6. And probably most of y'all have read this before, but, you know, it never hurts to read truth again and again. And when you read NTI Luke chapter 6, it's a fairly long chapter. But it's going to get to a place where it says, when you notice that you have an interpretation, take a break from what you see. Doesn't that sound like stop? Seek quiet time with me and share your interpretation with me. Go ahead and tell me, here's what I'm believing. You know, I'm believing the cops are out of control. I'm believing there's systematic racism. Heck, I'm Black and I am tired of seeing, you know, my young men shot and killed and held under knees, you know, till they choke to death. This is what I'm believing. I was always in my forgiveness practice, honest with the Holy Spirit or with the inner wisdom about what I believed. That's where I started every time. This is what I'm believing. This is what I'm feeling. These are the thoughts that are in my mind about this. But notice it's saying share your interpretation with me, not with the world, not with Facebook, with me, inner self. Tell me what you're feeling. Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what you're believing. Seek quiet time with me and share your interpretation with me. And then listen to this next sentence. Do not share your interpretation as if you must be right, expecting me to support you and lead you in the righteousness of your way. This could also be about a fight with the husband or the wife or a coworker. Share your interpretation expecting that you are wrong. And in fact, David Carse said, let's see, I underlined a lot here. Let's see if I can find it. He said, no opinion you have ever held is right. No opinion you have ever held is right. Right? So share your interpretation expecting that you are wrong because you have seen and believed without knowledge. In such humility, you can let go of your interpretation. You will see that it is nothing of value to you. And what you receive in its place, you will extend. This is where the helpfulness comes in. What we receive in its place is the emptiness, the stillness, the peace. You could even call it the nothingness, meaning no sides, no opinions. And that you extend. That's how we help the world. Stop in the name of love before you break my heart. If you break my heart, right, it's because you're still pushing. But if you stop in the name of love before you break my heart, you're going into the stillness and you're being that and you're extending that into the world. And any helpful energies that can help anything in the world will come naturally of that, whether your body is then moved, whether your mouth is then moved or not. Because guess what? It doesn't have to move your body or your mouth. If something needs to be done, it can actually move another body or another mouth because you chose to stop. Your job is the stopping. It then goes on to say, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say? Often when I'm teaching now, I remember Jesus's words for those with ears to hear. And when I was a corporate trainer, we used to say that if their behavior didn't change, they didn't learn. And the way that your behavior changes is by actually stopping when the grace to stop shows up. Now, again, I want to be clear that if you told this whole gossip story or you did this whole something else and not once in that episode of your life did the awareness come in of what you were doing, well, that's just the way it is, right? You can't stop unless the grace to stop shows up. You can't stop unless that awareness comes in. Oh, look at what I'm doing. Look at what I'm thinking. Look at what I'm saying. So if you did it and during that time no grace to stop showed up, don't worry about it. Don't go back and judge yourself later. That's just more ego. All right? Don't worry about it. But when the grace to stop does show up, stop. Have the sanity to stop. Okay? And in fact, if you stop when the grace to stop shows up, the grace to stop will start showing up a lot more, right? So your only job is to stop when the prompt to stop comes. How easy is that? And you guys all have the understanding of how important this is. Now, I could talk about this all day, but the weekly gathering doesn't last all day, so I'm going to stop. What I'm going to do is play a song. This is the Beatles, and it's, anybody guess? Let It Be. Let it be.
We have a few minutes here.
If anyone would like to share, I'll confess right up front, I have a 5-minute song I'd like to play at the end. So maybe one sharing. Okay, Glenda.
Hi, Regina. I just wanted to say thank you so much for saying we don't stop because we are bad. That's the only reason I thought I was to stop. So if you hadn't said that, I wouldn't have been able to hear your words, we stop in the name of love, because I was so attached to stopping because I'm bad and I need to fix myself and be good. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I want to say something else, Glenda, because as you said that, another confusion arose for me. There is a difference between stopping and not caring, right? I watched the George Floyd video from beginning to end twice. I even imagined, instead of George Floyd's face, Jasmine's face.
Mm.
And I felt that rage that even led to the rioting, beyond protesting. And I went right through that rage to the stillness. You see? So it's not caring, it's understanding, it's feeling, and then it's knowing the real answer and going to the real answer.
Mm. Right. Thank you.
Yeah. One more really brief, if there's anything really brief. All right then.
I just want to say,
Joanne, did you have your hand up? Go ahead.
Yeah, I did. You know, it was moving a number of ways. Well, first, when you sent this to me earlier in the week, the first 2 sentences just sort of brought tears to my eyes, you know. And then today, when you said there would be just another group that we would, I know you're right. And it just brought tears to my eyes. So anyway, thanks.
Yeah, you know, Africa is an interesting place to watch because in some parts of Africa where there are white and black people, there's racism.
Mm-hmm.
In other parts of Africa where it's not quite so divided on race, they still do
Religion.
lots of atrocities in
Yeah.
religion, lots of atrocities in the name
It's
of
just
politics.
It's the poor, the wealthy.
Yeah, we'll find a way to divide and torture each other as long as we're continuing to believe in separation.
Yeah.
So that's where we work on the real problem, right? The real cause. They can't help what they're doing, but we've had the grace to know better.
Yeah.
And so we go in and we work on the real problem. You do that by going within and stopping. All right, so the last song that I want to play, this is a great video that I found because it's, even though it happened another year, it fits well with this year. It's Dionne Warwick singing What the World Needs Now, which we all know is love, sweet love. But let's remember the definition of love. It's stopping. Let it be, going into stillness, right? So let's listen to Dionne Warwick. Yeah, I just want to say one thing really quickly and then I'll go. But one is, one of the things I love about the lyrics of that song is it says, what the world needs now is love, sweet love, not just for some, but for everyone. So again, if you're going into this because you're hoping to help one side of an issue, you're still pushing, right? It's not just for some, it's for everyone. The other thing I really love, and this is about the video, is I love at the end, the mother, who knows what she's into, but she's on the phone, all upset, looks like she's yelling at someone, and then her eyes hit that poster. And what does she do? She stops. All right. Thanks for coming, y'all. I enjoyed being with you, and I'll see you this evening. Mwah.